we're nearing sort of the end of this conference, and we've spoken about a lot of things. We've talked a lot about experience, about authenticity, about food, but we haven't actually spoken a lot about the way physical space and physical things define the travel experience. So I have two panelists here who can really speak to that. Peter Nebbe, who is next to me, is the founder and CEO of Punkt.
Well done.
Thank you. I just learned how to pronounce it. He is really, his company has created a phone he'll show you at some point. He's really inspired by technical design, so he'll bring that perspective. And Jan de Bel de Montby, the founder of de Bel de Montby Associates, is also here as well. And he's going to talk about sort of design aesthetics and not focus as much on technology. So we have the best of both worlds here, I think. So this, we're talking a lot about, what people in emerging markets want, what travelers want. So do you think Asia is the main emerging market that is sort of shifting these days,
of course.
would you say?
Yeah, of course. I mean, everything is in Asia. These days, we looked at traveling data, outbound travel data, everything happens here. And it happens so incredibly quickly. So one has to be here. So myself now traveling for 6 days, every place you go, you are just amazed how fast things go. You were here 6 months ago and it's still completely new change again. So yes, emerging market is Asia, and the possibilities, obviously in your main category of industry here, must have tremendous possibilities.
And someone did a panel yesterday and showed that what I think the millennial millionaires like to do as a hobby is shopping, which I actually didn't know was a hobby. I wish I had known that. I would have put that on my resume. But what does that traveler expect? What do they expect when they go to a store in terms of what it looks like and in terms of the sort of experience?
I think I can talk about China because I live in China since the past 10 years, and the market has evolved enormously. It's changed completely. I think people expected 10 years ago or just a product, just to buy a product. Today they expect an experience. They expect to buy and to get some emotion when they come into a space. So they know the products are good, but they expect much more than just to buy a product. They expect truly to be involved into the surrounding and the DNA of the product. And I think a lot of luxury brands are trying to achieve that today, which is not very easy.
So how does a luxury brand do that?
By probably going back to their roots, going back to the DNA and to the true story of the brand. Especially most of the luxury brands have had a very interesting past story, and they want to share that story, so they can share it by design, but as well by service, by quality of service, and trying to involve the customer into the story, trying to make the customer understand why they can handle such a product today and why is it made in such a way. So in that sense, in China, at least the market is changing very fast.
And so when people enter a physical store, is it that you don't want to necessarily just display a bunch of goods in a very organized way? Is it, do you want to sort of have the space reflect the story?
It's very difficult to make rules today in China, as we know, and one should be a fool to think that the market is easy to understand. It's probably the most difficult market in the world because it's changing almost on a weekly basis. The consumer are learning fast, and they are becoming more and more fussy about what they want to get from a product. Not only the price, but as well the experience, the emotion, which again was not the case 10, 15 years ago or 20 years ago when most of the brand and luxury brand entered the market. So I think when they come, of course, they want to have all the information about the product, but they want really to have a surrounding which they feel they could learn something about it. I think there is a real need in China about learning, about sharing. So the brand should share some of what they know very well with that potential customer.
And what about the things that people buy? I mean, I saw the list yesterday that people are interested in buying watches and all sorts of things. What goods do you think that people are interested in?
I think this change is changing again, not only in China, but even in Manila or Hong Kong, it's quite fluid, isn't it? So it's all about that item is a part of an experience. So you go there. So possibly there are some cross-border sort of advantages in buying something in one market and then bringing it back home and tax-free, all of that thing. But you can go to Hong Kong and you can go to the shop called Homeless, and you enter that shop to be seduced and in an intelligent way. So there we go in and how to encounter products that you never thought would be of such a value or luxury, for instance, in simplistic design approach, where it's just this fine craftsmanship or just very focused kind of proposition. So I think and you see that typically with Chinese going to Japan, for instance, they of course go in there, they get educated about what retail can do, and then of course they bring in the sacks full. Or you go to from Manila, people would certainly look to Singapore and Hong Kong and ape those experiences and put them into their own, or localize them into their space. So what do they buy then? I mean, that's why it's so fluid, as I said. I think these things change so fast. So yes, there are, if you have a hobby, which is shopping, then I think it tends to be something of metal and color and stone, whether there is a dial on it or not. But then if it's, let's say, the more affluent and more, which has had some surplus for some time, it's not all about that, because they can buy all of that, they can do all of that. It's more about finding those new things that actually talks to them. And that kind of informed luxury buyer is exploding in Asia as well. And that's, you see that in the reflection of what they buy. Let's say, you look at Muji in China. It's just a IKEA brand for simple stuff. IKEA meaning you pay for what for what you get. That can be so from top to toe, or the consumer would happily go and buy that. So that's the picture of that guy. He bikes to his office, but he flies his own private jet, and then he goes to Muji because he needed an extra suitcase.
But is there an experience that, I mean, that's for the consumer who wants to buy goods, right? I mean, they're not necessarily interested in an experience when they go to a place like that, right?
No. That's like. Yeah, that is solving a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. But having said that, of course, there are lower part of the consumer groups that would go in to find that experience, or just seeing things that they never actually saw existed, and possibly proposed it a different way, because they maybe saw a plastic bag that can be used several times, but never proposed as something of value to taking care of. So I think that you start to see a lot, even with, as I said, with Muji, which is not really about buying and throwing it away after use. It is that these brands educate this next stage of luxury, which is the confident luxury buyer. So he would go in and seek things that informs him and makes him think and consider that product. So, for instance, industrial design is very, very important in this new kind of informed buyer, and which is, and they, of course, this is what we had they had in Germany in the 60s or continental Europe in the 60s and the 70s. In China, it was introduced as possibly a concept a couple of years ago, and they're almost already catching up at a certain level.
So how does that, how does it translate to hospitality? Jan, you had mentioned that, I guess last week when we spoke, you had mentioned that you designed a space for someone who had to grow into it. So if you're, you have a hotel and you're trying to make a luxury client in an emerging market feel comfortable? What do you do? What's your approach?
Well, I think my approach is trying to make and to build things which make sense, not to build things because of design, but more linked to the fact that when you come into a space, we all have emotion and we all react to a space because we need to feel comfortable in that space. In China, it's very interesting because people have been concentrating on making money for the past 20, 25 years, and they didn't have much time to spend on experimenting situation. And sometimes they didn't travel so much because the market was in China, and in China you have to be present 24 hours a day if you want your business to grow fast. You have to be there. So when you start to take time to build space, and when I did build a space for one of my customers who gave me total freedom. It was a private club for only 13 gentlemen, a very beautiful space. He didn't come until the club was finished, and when he came into the club, he felt very uncomfortable. He gave me total freedom, so I thought I missed the point totally, and maybe my design was wrong. And in fact, he just wanted to get used to it. So instead to sit in his beautiful office that I had designed, thinking about him, he sat in the corridor. And when I asked everybody, is he happy? I said, well, since 1 week, he preferred to sit in the corridor. I was very intrigued. And he's a very bright man. I said, oh, so I missed completely the point. I'm very stupid. I built something where he doesn't feel comfortable. And they explained me that actually he wanted to get used to it. He trusted me, therefore he knew that it was something he will like, and since then he loved it so much that I'm doing his new place now. Interesting
so it was
reaction.
off-putting to him, basically. I mean, he thought it was too, did he think it was too fancy for him?
Maybe as well he didn't recognize his normal surrounding, and that's what's happening in China. A lot of people are to face situations. So in hotel, for example, I think you need to make things comfortable. You can challenge a little bit as soon as there is a sense, as soon as, sorry, I keep talking about emotion, but emotion is so important because that's what links people together. And the way I design things is very much based on empathy. So I try to understand what the other one could feel. But in China, very often, they don't want to say anything, so you have to guess. And that empathy can help you to understand what eventually the consumer wants, whether it's a hotel or a luxury store or a private house. It's very important. I never get brief. I get total freedom, which means a huge responsibility. Instead to be easy makes it even more difficult. So you build a story that, you help to build a story that is already within the person, and that the empathy helps you to understand that. That's why it takes maybe a little bit of time to feel comfortable with that new surrounding. I don't know if I'm very clear.
Yeah, that's clear.
So, and I think the technology side of that, if I may comment on that.
Yeah.
Because I heard some of these panels, and obviously technology is always around travel and luxury, or travel in general. I just think that one of these new things we do see from Huffington, talking about how important it is to sleep, switching off, digital detox, these elements. If you think about luxury, what is real luxury today? It's not about the latest panel or Apple computer here and there, because we're sort of over that, because everyone are carrying the most powerful computer in their pocket anyway. So in a way, in a luxury setting in a hotelier business, one should consider that that computer is coming with a client. How does he want to interact with that when he stays there, or at all? So we, in a luxury segment, it's all about, I think today, to be seduced away or taken away from everyday life is a fantastic sort of message on the luxury thing. And we heard it with Soneva yesterday as well. They don't even have BBC. So information overload, meaning that protecting one consumer from information overload is fantastically important. So luxury today, or become more and more in the future, is really about you come in and no one tells you too much. There's not, we have a lounge upstairs, it starts from that hour, and you sit there, you're jet lagged, and you're just, you can't just take in all of this information. So there's a very clever way of, I don't know the solution how to do that, but I just know that it's very, very important to this information element is incredibly important part of the overall experience of the traveler. And then the sleep part. Remember that.
Right. Sleep is like the biggest luxury.
Yeah, exactly. And this is what we really are striving to find rhythm, whether we are in jet lag situations or we are within our own time zones, because you've been meeting, traveling, just finding new excitement. Blah, blah. You come to your bedroom and there's a LED light on the TV just in front of you with a black box that is very hard to resist. It's all in your face. As Simon mentioned, your curtains, you can't even do it manually. You have to find some switch to do it with some kind of computer mechanical stuff behind. So you have to relate to all of these things, but you don't want to do that. You just want to have a very, very good night's sleep. Very simple. So that kind of switching off of information overload is very, very, very super important for the future, I think.
Well, at this point, I should point out what you created
Yeah, sure.
is this phone that is actually
just a phone.
A phone, and it's just so relaxing to hold this thing. I have to say. So this is kind of the ultimate luxury item in terms of technology right now, a phone that doesn't allow you to scroll through a bunch of photos, and there's no Instagram here.
There's nothing. It's only, and it's also this. Sorry.
It's really expensive, right?
No, absolutely not. It's very cheap and it saves your life. No, it's not about that. I think pricing is always very difficult, and it's the most strategical element of your product or service proposition. So you can, it forms who you want to talk to, and it's incredible what price that whatever level of hierarchy in the society you are, price can be a lot or little. It depends how you relate to the value of the product itself. So here, for instance, what we did was, rather than just doing an iPhone simple, or focused in our design way, so adding our design value to an object, we wanted to strip down that, and that's extremely difficult. So the time we spent more than 4 years developing this product, and just to develop a user interface that only do those few things. It's extremely interesting exercise. My background actually is software designing, so I had designed hundreds of user interfaces in my life. This is the most simple user interface, but the most complex. So, and that goes, I would, presume from an experienced luxury traveler in Asia, I would say that one of those things is that how can you, because it's not about this bling thing. We all see this kind of bling is all accessible for anyone today. If you think about this simplistic approach to both service and products in your environment, I think this is really the key to providing an incredible service to your customer. And where it's about the intention of what you do, the thoughtfulness of the selection from your table to how you deal with your recyclable issues to your energy, because the millennials are very, very busy with environment, and they want to be, take that in as a part of the experience as well.
So that's interesting. So in addition to, this sort of dovetails with authenticity, right? Everybody's interested in having, real experiences. But I guess it has to be carefully designed in a way that it's sort of seamless and effortless.
Yes, I think it should be very simple. Again, I join Peter with that. I think simplicity is true luxury today, even in design. I think trying too hard doesn't work very much. Coming back to material which makes sense when you touch them, when you smell them, I think it's very, very important. Over-design is taking you away from the experience. Looking at Peter's telephone, which I discovered a couple of days ago, it's absolutely fabulous. And when the few people who had handled it since the past few days, their reaction is very interesting because it's really like a true luxury product. It's a real experience. It's
What
almost
did
like
you say? You said,
It just made me want to push my smartphone away.
yeah, it's like silence.
Yeah,
it
it
represented
just felt-
silence.
yeah.
So I think it's designed but made in a very pure but in a very good way. I mean, it has to be well made and service need to be impeccable. We talk a lot about service. I think you started the whole conference by saying service. I think that's what's still missing. Part of the experience necessarily goes through service. And unfortunately, it's still very far away. China is still very far away compared to Japan or Europe or America. But it's catching up slowly because people are very, very intelligent and they really want to learn. They want to share and they want to be able to have that relationship with the consumer. And they know that good service will help them to be closer to the customer. But it needs to improve still.
Can you give me an example of, you don't have to cite any names, but what's an experience that is just over-designed, too complicated? Is it just, going into a room and seeing 5 different gadgets? Is that it? Or is it,
I think if any experience, and we don't need to talk about names or brands, it's really about if you enter into a space and you're forced to relate to those objects that sits there and scream at you. That means, if it's an alarm clock that wants your attention, all of these things, or a chair that wants to be much more than a chair. Look at me, I'm a sculpture. That's an over-design that, of course, it's the simplest way to create something different, sort of as a differentiator. But design is much more than that. So it's a quick, let's say, solution to something of adding value, kind of, but it's not a very long-lasting solution. So, so if you have to relate to the objects in the space you are, I think it's an over-design from a space point of view. If it's an object that you have to sort of relate to, even if you don't want to, it's an over-design in the object.
Yeah, I think I go to a lot of hotel, and I love hotel because it's become like home away from home. That's something marvelous. I would say that I'm disappointed in 90% of the case because it's, even if when service is very good, it's over-designed. It's too many things, so you need to spend too much time to know how to work those curtains. Instead to have just beautiful linen curtain you could pull,
yes.
You switching off.
You feel the material.
Voilà. And it happened to me and probably happened to you, where in the middle of the night in new hotel, all the electricity go down and the curtain go up and down, and the lights as well. It never happened to anybody.
Everyone are nodding here. Yeah.
This is like, and you wish you just pull those linen or cashmere curtain. Because today you can make fabulous, simple things which can last very long time. And just a beautiful light. I feel that very often you don't feel comfortable in those surroundings. People are trying too hard. Maybe in resort hotel, this is slightly different. And we had some fabulous speaker who talk about that simplicity, about switching off. And I think this is the really true luxury today. It's not design, it's simplicity in design, which is design in a certain way. It's about listening to something which everybody would feel comfortable because it's very simple, very well done. It smells good. We seem to have forgotten about smell. Smell is so important. I haven't smelled your phone, Peter.
I know, I haven't.
Me neither.
I'm sure it smells great.
It smells great. No, but smell, I think that's one of my passions recently, this overuse of what they call ear design.
What is that?
Ear design.
I
think maybe it's
I've never heard that term.
I think there's some smart Italians coming up with some ear design, which would be that there is a lot of perfume in the corridor when you enter, and into your bedroom. It's just such a nasty experience. And what is the problem? It's like the good old Wunderbaum that you had in the cars in the 70s, at least in Europe kind of area, but you would hang them because you cover the cigarette smoking in the car, and you would have a textile, so it would all soak in. So you have this kind of fake fake lid over this smelly thing. And that's what it actually feels with this, even though it's air design. And it's really intrusive. And I think this intrusiveness comes from all the senses, of course, because we are human beings. So smell, either you do it very well, so you do good quality air into your hotel rooms, or you don't think about, at least don't try to cover that bad technology you have in the back with some fancy smell from Milan.
So yesterday, the founder of iCrave talked about his designing an experience in an airport as managing people's anxiety. And today you're talking about being seduced. So I'm curious to find out what are the latest tools of seduction and the last time you were seduced by a space.
Being an informed luxury consumer, today you are seduced by, of course, these experiences that each panel has touched upon, because it's all of these, belonging, where things come from, whether it's a food, whether it's, the curtain, etc. But it's also about information, isn't it? You're seduced because it's almost like a fairy tale story but it is a truth. So it's a story of an idea, a concept. Like, for instance, I try to seduce you to my world of Punkt through telling you that actually, this reconnect with yourself, your family, those surroundings, because you're a creative, incredible creative individual. You're much better than the robots that are taking over, so to say. And be careful, because what we are afraid of is that it's not about, I'm not concerned about artificial intelligence, I'm concerned about intelligence becoming artificial, if you get what I mean. So I think seduction is about, not being overly intellectual, but just giving, to have a deep thought of why this, whether it's a product or is a space, why did we do that? There's a story why I made this shack on the beach, why I did that way, because I really wanted it to, be in that context where it's built. It's not sitting on top, it's really rooted into that space. To the selection of tablecloth.
Yes, I agree. I think it's very much about having a sense behind each thing that you select, about each decision, being able to explain it, not because it's pure design, but because it makes sense. Again, Peter, telephone helps you to sleep well, because you for the first time, I want to take my iPhone, because I still rely on it to wake up in the morning. And I think I don't want that near my bed.
No, you should get an alarm clock.
Okay, yes. He designed very, very beautiful alarm clock,
yes.
by the way.
Yeah.
But you're right. Much better.
Your bedroom should not have a telephone beside it.
Nowadays, I think we all read stories about interactive surfaces and appliances, technology that in the future will be talking to us, like a talking cup or a cooker. I would be curious to hear how you think this is going to affect what you are doing. How are you going to integrate this kind of technology in your designs? And then I have one question for Jan specifically, because you said that 90% of the hotels you stayed at disappointed you. I would be curious to hear at least one name of those hotels that didn't disappoint you.
Should I start? How I sort of confront these new technologies in the future is that I will not integrate them into my product. I think what I do is, I think it's this, start with a smartphone. The Apple III is only 7 years, and it's central to our lives. And it's not central to only luxury sector, it's everywhere. 3.5 billion smartphones are sold every year. Not all, of course, Apple, but Apple taking a lot, the Samsung and all of that. So it's just, think of the smartphone as just a set, as well as like a digital infrastructure. It's there. Take it, it's for granted that your clients will have a smartphone somewhere. If there's nothing to do there in that sense, to make that smartphone. So, I can only do to be true to myself, and what I offer is to create what I call just instruments. That technology is great. I love technology. I just know that we need to help ourselves to have a little bit more managed way of or relationship with that technology. So we need a tame technology because we can't relate to all of that technology all of the time. We need to just have some borders. So maybe it is, I don't know, if any one of you have the Echo, Amazon that you talk to, you can try that, but okay, it's fine. Possibly it's fine to have it in the office or only the library, because when you enter there, you sort of, your head go into that. So it's just about creating those spaces, because it's not about gains technology. It's not technology is stupid. It's just that we have to balance it. So I would never integrate that into my future products. And then I think I can just offer another alarm clock again.
So
I'm going to answer to you very quickly for hotel experience. It's interesting because I'm trying to think about it. Probably the more fresh in my memory is the Puli Hotel in Shanghai. Not because it's the best hotel in the world, but it's so close to a very warm experience. I mean, it's very relaxing because it's a urban resort in the middle of one of the largest cities in the world. It's so good, and it's true, that I work very hard in China, and sometimes I don't have time to escape from Shanghai, which is in the middle of nowhere. You cannot go to Bali, or you cannot go from Shanghai. It takes too long. So I used to go and spend just 1 night or 2 nights from my home, which is 150 meters from the Puli, and pack a suitcase and just go. And this is a fabulous experience. Take a big suite and take a suite for my kids. And it was fun, actually, not to be in your home and being in a hotel. So for me, this is the best experience, because if I leave my own home with all my objects, usually I carry some of my objects to make even that room even more special. I'm a bit...
Okay, great. Well, our time is up. I want to thank these two panelists for very entertaining, thoughtful discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Cheers.